Hi everyone, welcome back. Got another little quick tabletop review for you, or introduction should I say, on this one. This is a little purchase I made a couple of weeks ago when I went up to Wales and popped in at my friends at Haynes. Never been a great one or great fan of neck knives for some reason. I guess it's one of those things where I've never really entertained them. I've always kept knives on my belt or in my possibles pouch or in my pockets if they're folders, that sort of thing. But I decided to look into neck knives, and this is one I plumped for because it was a high carbon steel, and it was fairly cheap as well. I've got to say, some of the neck knives out there by some of the name brands are pretty expensive, and this little chap here from Condor only cost me about £22, I think it was. Which I thought was pretty reasonable. £22.95 it was from Haynes. So a little bit about the knife itself. Overall, once the blade is in the kydex sheath, it comes to pretty much 18 centimeters long, which I didn't think was, some of them you can get shorter than that. Some of them are a little bit bigger and longer. I thought that was fairly reasonable. I wouldn't say it's unwieldy particularly. We'll see how we get on with it. But about 18 centimeters long, and width-wise, the kydex sheath is 4.5 centimeters wide. Let's have a look at the knife itself. Coming out the kydex sheath, it's got this black finish all along it. I don't know whether it's kind of like a powder coating or something along those lines, whatever it is. I wouldn't say it was the sharpest knife I've ever come across out the box, to be honest with you, but it's workable for the time being, and with the DC4 I can probably put a good edge on there, and also with a good strop afterwards that'll probably work nicely. The specifications, the blade length is 3 inches. It's made out of 1075 high carbon steel, and it's basically one single piece all the way through. There's no other joins or anything along those lines. It's one piece of steel coated. Blade thickness, I quite like the fact that it was 2.5 millimeters thick. It's a fairly thick blade that probably stand up to a bit of abuse. It hasn't got a lot of belly in this. There's not a lot of belly in that blade, but actually I'm not too worried about that. It's going to be used for some fairly light tasks, cutting cordage, things like that. You know what you generally use a neck knife for. I've always got the bigger Mora or the Condor Bush Law, which I'll be continuing to test. So I thought I'd plump for this one. What I also liked about this was the fact that the kydex sheath is in a square shape. 6 holes, so you can strap it to other things if you wanted to do that. Overall length 6 3/4 inches. So sheath's made of kydex. It's pretty good fitting, I've got to say. The knife really does snap in there quite nicely. There's absolutely no movement. There's no danger of that coming out unnecessarily. It needs a good old tug to pull it out. So more than happy with that. The thing that struck me about this immediately, or interested me, the square shape immediately screamed out for pimping up a little bit, making some additions to this to make it not just a neck knife, but a neck knife that could offer a few additional little features with a little bit of ingenuity. So bear with me for a couple of minutes, and we'll just switch over to when I've been and got a few little bits, and I'll just run a few ideas by you guys. Make some comments at the end of the video, see what you think. I might even build the thing as we go along, trying to keep the video at a reasonable length, unlike me, obviously. So yeah, we'll see how we go, guys. Give us a couple of seconds and I'll grab a few bits, and we'll see what we come up with. Okay, so I said I wasn't going to bore you with the details, but I've decided I am with some of them. Decided to use the Leatherman, the little mini Phillips screwdriver on there, just to take the screws out of the back of this little torch, because I'm pretty sure I can remove this little clip sort of thing, you know, used for a split ring to hang off key rings, that sort of thing. But for my purposes on this occasion, it's probably not required, so I'm just going to remove these little black screws in the back of this torch flashlight. I don't know where you can see this, so apologies for the light, but there's the 4 black screws out. Now I reckon if I very carefully, yeah, and as suspected, that's a really simple, easy mechanism just to remove that little bit at the back, and of course trying very hard not to move anything inside it or anything. I'll look to put that back together. Now of course part of the problem with doing this, still works, I'm just holding it together. Part of the problem with doing that now means that it's not going to be waterproof. Am I too worried about that? Probably not, because I'm going to stick a Ranger band just on the edge across there, still leaving me access to this bit, but Ranger band across, and I'll make sure it's long enough so that it comes over that. I know it's not going to solve the problem, but then I'm also not going to be looking to get this particularly wet either. You know, in driving rain and nasty conditions, it's going to be inside of my clothing, and as a result of that, I don't think I need to worry about it being waterproof too much, because really this is I mean, what the whole point of this is that it's offering me a small amount of capability. If the absolute worst of the worst came to it, I've got some paracord with some inner strands, I've got a little flashlight, a neck knife, a saw, some tinder and a ferrocerium rod. That's not too bad when you think about it. So let's just test that, and it works perfectly. Beautiful. Yep, nice one. Really quite pleased with that. So that's first little modification. I'll just do those screws up a tiny bit more, just to make sure they're in there properly and everything's all nicely together. Yep. And that's really quite stiff actually. So yeah, cool. So right, I'll just get on to the whistle next. So we'll see how we get on with that. Well, there you have it, guys. That's just the first initial kind of attempt at putting this little Condor neck knife into some kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Adding a few little bits to it that make it that little bit more useful. Doesn't weigh an awful lot, which is good. Right, let's give you some close-ups. Let's grab the trusty farmer and see if we can't get really in a lot closer to this. I'll show you what's going on. Right, apologies if this is not as bright as it could be. Let's try using the light. So, first things first, on the back, a thick Ranger band from around about there to around about there. That big was put on to the sheath. And I've stuffed the little tinder pouch with the ferrocerium rod inside of that Ranger band. Right, on top of that, I've then gone and put the whistle underneath 2 Ranger bands. So I'm not covering up the hole, but it's held nicely in place. It's not going anywhere. And I can still use the whistle. I'm not going to because it's howler whistle, it's quite loud. Then underneath these 2 Ranger bands, I've put the little flashlight in such a way that I still have access to it. When it's dangling from my neck, I can use the light, and all it takes is a little switch off. So I've still got access to that switch, on and off, no problems. Because I've got these 4 Ranger bands, I've gone and slit the little Dermasafe saw underneath those, and that enables me to carry this little purpose-built hacksaw blade. Use it for notching, you know, get through inch-thick pieces of wood by cutting around the diameter of the wood and then snapping it from there if needs be. It's a little saw blade option. So there you have it, guys. That's a first kind of pass at turning this Condor neck knife into something more usable with more options to it. So quick recap over everything again. Paracord neck carry, whistle for signalling, little saw blade there, and some illumination, as well as the knife itself. One of my little projects over and done with. It doesn't look the prettiest thing in the world. It needs a bit of tidying up. I may look to incorporate different Ranger bands, maybe make this one a bit thicker to cover the bottom of the howler whistle. I don't know, I'll have a little tidy up in it another time, but I guess it's you know, it's form and function over fashion, without a shadow of a doubt. And that's what this is really all about. It just gives me those little extra options if I need them. Last ditch attempt. I think that's worked out pretty well. So there you go, guys, see you in the next video.